And my guest says sometimes you have to marvel at the absurdity of the financial universe in which we live. He draws some pretty amazing comparisons between the U.S. government's reset of allowable debt to just over $20 trillion and Greece's 9th year of major debt crisis. Please welcome Ron Paul, former U.S. representative. Thank you, sir, for joining me today. Now, let's touch on something we heard recently. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin has said we've spent the money, so the concept of the debt limit is somewhat of a ridiculous concept. Do you think that that is a ridiculous concept in and of itself?
What, the idea of having a debt limit? No, they should follow it, though. They should I think they should have followed Thomas Jefferson and prohibited the government from borrowing money, because look at where we are today. You know, yeah, we're living well. We're still a very wealthy nation, but it's all on borrowed time and borrowed money, and that's why it's so, the whole system is so fragile. So, no, the borrowing is too much to have a debt limit. I think it's good. It makes them stop and think for a minute. It's the people who want to spend more and they adhere to Keynesian economics. They said that isn't a problem. You know, as long as you can print the money, you just print the money when you need it. They don't believe that's a long-term problem. I happen to believe it's a catastrophic problem, and we know a little bit about what happens when we have these corrections, you know, like in the year 2000 and 2008. That's just a hint of what's to come, because eventually the whole system comes down, and I think this is why we see so many people uncertain about what's going to happen, you know, in the marketplace, and we're not back to strong economic growth. We really never recovered from the recession of 08 and 09. The middle class has been in a recession depression ever since then. So, yeah, I think spending, deficit financing is a very serious problem that we face.
Well, let's look at someone you've quoted in a recent article. You know, last year, a net loss of $1 trillion, debt increases of $1.4 trillion about. You've quoted former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers saying, how long can the world's biggest borrower remain the world's biggest superpower? What do you think we have to look through? You know, it's just the beginning, but really down the road of this administration, even a year on from now.
Well, it is hard to predict exactly when, but it always comes. Ronald Reagan told me once, he says, any great nation or great empire, if they ever go off the gold standard, and then there's no limitation on what they can spend, it is always destroys the country and the nation. And we're there, but to say it's going to happen in 6 months or 1 year, it's impossible to say that. But it's an insolvent system, just as communism and fascism is unworkable, and the Austrian economists predicted they would fail. And now I think it's an agreement with free market people that the Keynesian model, which is a little softer and believing that they can circumvent laissez-faire and come up with something different than total authoritarianism. But economically, it's not so. It's force. It's using force to tax and to redistribute wealth, pass on the bills to the middle class and bail out the wealthy. So it doesn't work, and we're seeing right now, this is why there's an impasse in Washington. They don't have a solution because they won't admit that this system isn't working.
Well, let's talk about not admitting a system is working. Let's talk about an impasse. Greece, its 9th year of debt. Now, I think you and I can agree, 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road, absolute calamity could be in the cards there. What are we set for this year if it defaults yet again? Germans are paying for Greek retirements. You know, the beat goes on. What do you see happening here?
Well, you know, since it's going to be painful for more than just the Greeks, I think they'll get, you know, a little more token bailout. They're not just going to totally ignore them. But, you know, they do limp along. Look how long the Japanese have limped along, and the Greeks are limping along. But the system that I'm talking about, the Keynesian model of economics, that involves all of Europe. So how long will Europe be able to bail out a country like Greece? There'll be other countries, and the end stage is unpredictable. Because it pops up very quickly. If you look at the collapses like in Zimbabwe and Venezuela and other countries, European countries have done it, it comes quickly at the end. But I don't think we're quite there because the United States, it depends on the United States. So if Europe has trouble paying the bills, like they did during the 08 and 09 crisis, you know, our Fed bailed out a lot of banks and governments overseas up to the tune of $16 trillion.
Well, that's right.
Because people were trusting that dollar.
Well, as you point out with Greece, it happening quickly at the end. It's Bank A, Bank B, Bank C, all the way to Bank Z. You have said that calamity over there will have implications across the Atlantic. People who are not following the Eurozone and the problems there find that alarming. Sort of outline for us how that would look and how quickly that could actually hit, how we might feel something like that here.
Well, it will because, we're all tied together. We do have a globalist system. So, yes, when a small country goes bust, it doesn't ripple through the whole entire world. But when the euro goes or the dollar goes, the dollar, lately has been, going down again. And there may be a panic out of the dollars. Who knows what will happen? But it will affect everybody. So I think then there will have to be a revamping of the monetary system because this system doesn't work, and it's never worked in all of history. And they tried to patch it together and have a link to gold, ever since the Fed's been in existence, and they put that Bretton Woods together, and the Austrian economists predicted it's not going to work because that broke down in '71, and this system doesn't work either. So it's just a matter of whether it's going to be 6 months or 6 years before the total end comes.
Well, that's a dour outlook, but it's, the truth is difficult. It's a bitter pill to swallow. Thank you so much for your input on this and drawing that line between Greek and the United States. Thank you, former U.S. Representative Dr. Ron Paul.
Thank you.